So you think, as a teacher, you have a right to nag a student who's not doing things in random order like they should be able to. Well, I want you to listen carefully and so I can explain this to you. All this is the effects behind a teacher who tries to handle a student who cannot do their work in random order. A student will refuse to try it and do whatever they can to get out of it. And there's all sorts of ways they could do it. They could simply say, I'm not randominant, and they could just simply get pretty obstinate with you, keep pushing the situation. And that's one thing that often leads into pretty serious situations. The student will probably never be able to fit themselves into any advanced directions of their schoolwork or art. I mean, a lot of times, if you think that maybe giving a student an assignment and they listen, pretty well, things will work. But listening is only one part of the situation. It's only the bolt part. The nut that goes with that bolt is being able to do things in random order. So therefore, you can't tell a student not to cut on a certain line in any forceful manner just because they can't do it in random order. You have to be the one to set up the art in a way that helps them follow the rules. That's what you have to do with a lot of students of today. If you don't know what's wrong, you need to listen to what the neurophysicist says, and they have to be the ones to tell you what to do. And therefore, then you don't have to deal with the situation any more than you need to. See, if they say that they're not randominant, you can't put things on they're not allowed to do. So therefore, you have to be the one to know what to do and when. The person will probably say no to redirecting themselves when told to do and act to the direction being repeated. And you want to know something? That goes for all sorts of things. I mean, a student who doesn't have the genetics to do things in random order is more likely to get upset when things get in their way and they just have problems with them having to redirect themselves. And it just doesn't do any good to keep repeating the redirect themselves or to try to keep pushing that on them after they told you what's wrong. Because believe it or doubt it, I mean, if you repeat that and then tell somebody they're not going to say anymore, they actually have federal court permission to slam their hand on the table in front of you. And that means you can't react to them unless you have written permission to do so. The student will be more likely to physically hurt another child who acts like they have an opinion. Let me tell you something. Children who are exaggerant or persistent and try to act like they have an opinion are pretty bad news. And as a teacher, if you see one doing that, you take them immediately away from the situation. Don't take the one who's right away. Just take the one who's wrong away, then they'll be safe. By not doing so, you're actually risking someone getting hurt that way. A student, if told about the consequences for being sent to timeout, will probably act up if the teacher's direction fails to stop. I mean, a lot of times some teachers think that maybe if they say they can't go to timeout in order to earn points, student will do whatever they can to try to fight their way out of it. Some of them have been known to actually shove their desk forward and then cause a serious breach that eventually leads to discipline notices. Sometimes they've been having to pay for something that got broken. And I can tell you right now, ignorance like that, teacher wouldn't even be allowed to decide the consequence of losing the activity. They were so ignorant they didn't pay attention, and so therefore the situation's void. And parents or guardians who try to support them are not smart, and they should not be allowed to have their children with them if they can't see that the child doesn't have random abilities. And I can tell you one thing, they're pretty good at causing injury if they have to put up with things. Some of them are pretty good at running out of the room, and I can tell you right now, some of them are pretty good at trying to break pursuits only to cause them to get tighter to a point. I tell you, the black and white stripe person shows how much shame there is. I mean, one thing you also got to keep in mind is you cannot, and I repeat, cannot spectate them just because they're not coloring things the way they're told. Some people do have non-randominant situations that you cannot mess with. It's as simple as that. Now, if we do the right thing and leave a person who cannot do his stuff in random order to the neurophysicist to repair, well, a student would be more likely to listen to you and do stuff in random order as asked. Maybe they'll get a chance to do stuff at a more advanced directions than usual. They might even redirect themselves without worrying about loss of place. A randominant person has a way of being able to remember where they left off if they have to change. The student would probably have what they need to be tolerant of some other child's good-for-nothing opinions, but that would at least keep them trying to hurt them, and you won't have to put up with any more violent reactions to stuff. You won't even have to deal with injury or someone getting your attention. Student probably won't have any need to run out or anything. And you can get a medal for being a good person. It's something you need to keep in mind. Under no circumstances is it acceptable to just repeat a direction at someone who says they can't do things. I mean, they're not stupid. If there's anyone who can't understand, it's someone who thinks they have a right to repeat directions. I mean, no one is stupid just because they can't do things in random order. That's just the way they are. And so therefore, if you think you have a right to to repeat, just remember, it's their right to act against you. And so, therefore, the courts hear about how you don't pay attention to neurophysics in people to help them function. They will give that person permission to slam their hand on the table if you try to force them to take anything, and that's that. You don't want to pay to that, you better be good. You better listen, because everybody counts on you for your responsible behavior.